Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about ABBA's I Do, I Do, I Do, I Do, I Do single. And the single was off the ABBA album, which is my favourite ABBA album, which was released roughly April 1975, the actual album. And I Do, I Do, I Do was the first single that was released here in Australia off that album. And it's interesting that it's the first track on side 2 of the vinyl album, and the first track on side A of the album was Mamma Mia. So you had two big #1 singles on this album for a start. Okay, so I Do, I Do, I Do had Rock Me as the backing track, and that later ended up becoming a AA single because they started playing the Rock Me as well as the I Do, I Do, I Do single. And it's interesting that on the 1st of March in 1975, colour TV was officially released in Australia. Now, at that time, most people still had black and white televisions, but gradually people started to purchase them after that official release date. And of course, the timing with ABBA's promo clips being aired on TV as well, no doubt had a big benefited very much from that introduction of colour TV, I'm sure. And so basically they sent 4 music promo clips to Australia, which had Mamma Mia, SOS, I Do, I Do, I Do, and Bang a Boomerang. And out of those, they chose I Do, I Do, I Do as the first single off the album. And it was a wise decision because it actually, in Sydney, reached #1, and it was there for 3 weeks at #1 and then stayed in the charts much longer after that. I won't go into the details, but no, that was the significance of that particular song. And why it's interesting too is that the year prior, 1974, was when ABBA obviously won the Eurovision Song Contest with Waterloo. And back then, I remember a black and white promo clip of Waterloo being sent to Channel 10. I think Channel 10 was the only station in Australia that showed that, and it didn't have quite the impact that maybe it did overseas. But definitely I Do, I Do was the starting point of ABBA's big success in Australia. And it, as Bjorn once said in an interview, it's got quite a nostalgic sound to it with the multiple saxophones, and the fact that it was sort of in the style of the big bands at the time, like Billy Vaughan, Bert Camford, James Last, those sort of people in Germany. Like that big band sound was very popular. So that was something unique. And also, the sheet music itself was the cover in Australia looked like this when it was released. And would you believe it was 80 cents when it was released? Okay. And inside the album, the sheet music album, that is, I mean, there's actually an extra verse that have lyrics that weren't released on the single, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. The other interesting thing is it's in common time, and it's in the key of C major. So the major keys tend to be brighter, they tend to be more uplifting, happier kind of sound as opposed to minor keys. So a lot of the early ABBA hits were in major keys, and they tended to have that upbeat, uplifting feel about them. And I Do, I Do, I Do was no exception to that. Now it starts off with multiple saxophone overdubs. So just one person was playing a saxophone that was then recorded again and again and again and again. So I think I read somewhere, I think it was up to 11 overdubs of just the saxophones alone were done to create that big orchestral kind of effect. And the actual intro that we're most familiar with, okay, it's based on triplets. Now, what a triplet is basically 3 quavers played in the time of 2 quavers. Okay, so if you're in 4/4 time and you have your 4 crotchet beats in a bar, then basically you're playing 3 quavers to each crotchet beat. Okay, but the interesting thing with the intro, and all these early songs had instrumental intros. Most of ABBA's songs did. There are some exceptions, but basically they tended to like having an instrumental introduction. And in the case of I Do, I Do, I Do, the first triplet only had 1 quaver in it. It had a crotchet rest and a quaver as a triplet. Then the other 3 triplets followed. And kind of it gives this syncopated sounding kind of anacrusis effect where you're not starting. Anacrusis is when you're not actually starting on the first beat of the bar. It's an offbeat. And then you're following that with 3 triplet grips like. Okay, all right. Now, back at that time too, Benny seemed to like boogie basses, I've noticed. We had a boogie bass in Fernando, we had a boogie bass in Ring Ring, we had a boogie bass in Honey Honey, and I Do, I Do, I Do, while all that's going on, you've got this that's all going on in the bass. So you've got a bit of boogie woogie pattern there. Okay, and that's quite common in those early songs. Now, mostly I Do, I Do, I Do sticks to C major throughout. It doesn't deviate very much into any other keys until about the middle part where they sing I've been dreaming through my lonely past. That little bit there, it goes in, there's a bit of G minor there, okay, and then it works its way back into C major again. But it's very, there's not much major in it. It's an uplifting, upbeat, happy sounding tune. All right. Now, like I said before, when they released the recording, they deleted this verse, which went like this. Let's get together. Every day will be better. I love you. I do, I do, I do, I do, I do. Then leave it or take it. I believe we can make it. Don't you too? I do, I do, I do, I do, I do. So what they did is they substituted those lyrics with an instrumental section of I do, I do, I do, where the saxophones are playing the main melody and there's no vocals. And I think it was very clever how they did that. Again, Stig Anderson, their manager, made a contribution to this song too. So it wasn't just done by Benny and Bjorn. Stig also had some input, and I've noticed wherever Stig is involved, particularly in the early songs, they tend to have huge hits with those songs, at least in Australia, that's for sure. So whatever Stig did, he added the X Factor or whatever it was to a lot of those hits. I know he's been credited for sometimes helping out with the lyrics, but I think there was some musical input too, and I mean he played guitar himself, so he was quite musical. So that's no surprise, really. Okay, so the other thing that's musically interesting is this part of ABBA's writing around the ABBA album is that they used a lot of thirds. By thirds, I mean the notes are a third apart. That sort of thing. Okay, now they also did that in Fernando when they had okay, and then they also had in SOS the introduction, all the notes are a third apart. and so on in that lovely D minor key. Oh, that song is just so wonderful. That's honestly, I think that's the best song they did. Anyway, so much going on in that, musically, I mean. Okay, so what else have I got here to talk about this? I made some notes this time because sometimes it's hard to think of everything, and then afterwards I think, oh, I should have said this and I should have said that and all that sort of thing. But I think the main thing was that I do definitely started the ABBA explosion in Australia. Because following I Do was Mamma Mia, and again, like I mentioned, they had a film clip, promo clip for that, which was shown on various musical shows, and the way the splicing and editing of the film was done, it was so in tune with the music. And then of course SOS followed, and at one stage we had Mamma Mia at #1 on the charts in Sydney, and we had SOS #2 on the charts in Sydney. Again, charts are tricky because it varies all over the place, but that was, I'm only talking in terms of Sydney there. But that's probably the main things with I Do. There's not a lot in it, but it's interesting the cover they used on the sheet music. Back in 1975, ABBA were invited to appear on a TV show called ABBA, made in Sweden for export, I'm sorry. And they performed 3 numbers, which was Mamma Mia, I Do, and So Long. And all those songs were from this same album. And they had various other artists Swedish artists performing, like, for example, Bjorn Skifs, Sylvia Vrethammar, Merritt Hemmingsen, Lils Lindfor, for example, just to name a few of them. And most of them did at least 2 numbers. I think ABBA, lucky they got to do 3, and of course they were really good performances that ABBA did of the songs as well. So that part of that show was spliced and released as a TV special here at one stage in I think it was 1976. They showed that but they edited it. They didn't show everything that was in the original Swedish production, but we saw a few of the other Swedish artists, and so that was good to see too. Apart from that, Ivan Mogul was still the music publisher representative for Australia, so all the sheet music was under Ivan Mogul. It's just unbelievable to see it was 80 cents back in 1975. Okay, and is there anything else that I should mention? No, I think that might be it for I Do. I've pretty much done an analysis for all the big songs that I really like, but I've left one to last, which I'll do later. Dancing Queen is probably the ultimate hit, the climax of building up from I Do being the original big hit from this album in Australia, and when the ABBA explosion started, up to I Do, and then I think it started to taper off a little bit in Australia, but definitely I Do is a great song, and I do have very nice memories of when I was 17, and we went on a Christmas holiday up to the what was then called the Foster Tuncurry RSL Club. I think it's just called Club Foster now, but it's up the north coast of New South Wales, and my dad's brother was the secretary of the club at the time, and his name was Graham Hanlon. And anyway, he asked me would I play a couple of numbers on the piano up there for the audience. So because I Do was so big at that time, I thought I'll do that one, and I also played The Entertainer from the Sting, the movie The Sting, because that was also ragtime was starting to become very popular then too. And I like ragtime music, particularly Winifred Atwell as well, so it was just interesting that I Do was so well suited to playing on the piano, and nearly everyone in the audience knew all the lyrics, the words to the song, and started singing along. So it was such a great atmosphere, and in fact they asked me to play it again, and they had another sing along to it. So that just gives you a bit of an idea of how popular ABBA was here back at that time, and more so in 1976 and early 77. That was definitely a wonderful time I'll never forget. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye. Bye.